My name is Carter Hale. And if you're the kind of person who trusts easily falls hard and thinks a shared Spotify password equals soulmates, yeah, you might want to stick around for this. Because I trusted someone. And she took everything. Not metaphorically, no, she literally drained my entire life savings. $63,904. Gone. Vanished like a crypto scam ad at 3 a.m. But here's the kicker. I got it all back, legally. A reality check says, if I go, you'll be cooled for skipping this part. So before you sit back and listen, take a moment to like the video and subscribe to the Final Revenge channel. But only if you really like what I have to say here. Now get in the mood to listen to this story, because it could be the ultimate sweet revenge. It started with a ping, just a simple push notification on my phone. Transfer complete. That would have been fine if I had authorized it. Problem was, I hadn't touched my banking app all day. My thumbprint wasn't the one making decisions. Within 2 minutes, I was locked out of my joint crypto wallet. Yes, joint. I know. Rookie mistake. I should have known better. I work in cybersecurity. I literally give lectures on threat vectors and trust layer encryption. But love is its own malware, right? Her name was Riley, 5'5", blonde streaked with ambition, killer smile, and apparently a killer instinct for asset extraction. We met at DEF CON, not the military alert. I'm talking the hacker conference. I was giving a talk on blockchain forensic trails. She was demoing a tool that could spoof browser hashes in under 6 seconds. Match made in digital heaven. We dated for 18 months. Lived together for 9. She moved into my place when her lease got complicated. Looking back, her entire personality was a bit of a sandbox mode fun to play with, but nothing ever saved. She started investing, or so she said. I'd wake up to her at 2 a.m., watching charts and drinking green tea like some kind of finance monk. I didn't ask too many questions. She was good at what she did, confident, convincing. Once I caught her on a call saying, no, it's not a rug pull, it's a liquidity event. And I remember thinking, damn, she's fluent in this. Turns out she was fluent in something else too, taking. When the funds disappeared, so did she. The apartment was half empty. Her clothes, gone. Desk, cleared. Plants, even the snake plant I gave her was missing. All that remained was a sticky note on the fridge. No, Lee. It said, don't try to find me. I needed it more than you. And a smiley face. Now here's where most people would either cry or rage. I did neither. I sat down, opened 3 monitors, and got to work. Because she thought she stole from a boyfriend. She didn't. She stole from a blockchain forensic analyst with an ego problem and a 40-ounce tumbler of cold brew. First thing I checked, our wallet's activity logs. Gone. She'd transferred everything out through a series of anonymous chains, ending in a privacy coin mixer that basically shreds transaction trails into confetti. But here's what she forgot. I helped build one of those mixers. I know where the seams are. Second thing I checked, the joint LLC we filed together, an experimental trading shell we built as a fun side hustle. Yeah, I still had access to the registration doc. And guess whose name was still tied to 50% of the assets? Me. I smiled. Not because I had a plan, but because I knew if I played it right, I wouldn't just get the money back. I'd do it in a way that left her stunned, silent, and legally outmaneuvered. And that's better than revenge. That's poetic rebalancing. I didn't sleep that night. Didn't eat, didn't blink much either. I just stared into the back end of a blockchain explorer like it owed me answers. The thing about crypto? Everyone says it's anonymous, but that's only half true. It's more like pseudonymous. Every wallet leaves a footprint. You just have to know where to step. And oh, buddy, I knew where to step. First breadcrumb. She used a mixer I'd seen before Cypher Crush. Real slick. But she didn't know they'd patched a vulnerability 6 months ago. One I quietly disclosed. One I could exploit again with the right warrant. So I made a call. His name was Jaden, ex-coworker. Now he consults for fintech startups and drinks espresso like it's a religion. Jaden owed me one from back when I covered for his little accidental data leak. You seriously want to dig into her wallets? He asked. No, I said. I want to prove she used funds tied to a registered LLC. That makes them traceable business assets. He whistled. You're really going to do this by the book? I'm gonna make the law shake her hand before it punches her in the face. We ran a trace through public ledgers, found 2 intermediary wallets. She used likely burner addresses, but one had a sloppy transfer that lined up to a known Coinbase withdrawal. And guess what? She hadn't anonymized her metadata on that one. Sloppy Riley. Very sloppy. Now I had proof that LLC-tied funds were being moved under personal capacity. That meant I could file an injunction, lock the wallet, pause the movement. But that was only step 1. Step 2, make her come to me. You ever lure someone with their own greed? It's a delicate art. You have to know how they think, what makes them click. And Riley was obsessed with ROI, fast turnarounds, quick flips. She once dumped a coin after a 4% spike. No patience, no long game. So I made one. I created a decoy project. A fake token, a new green blockchain initiative built on carbon-neutral smart contracts. I called it Thorncoin. Edgy enough to trend, vague enough to avoid suspicion. I spun up a slick landing page, posted fake founder bios, including a hilariously shirtless head of operations named Lucas, who was just an AI-generated surfer guy, and seeded a few buzzwords across forums. Then I airdropped it right into her burner wallet. Value, $0. Perceived value, priceless if you believed the hype. And she would. 2 days later, activity pinged. She opened the wallet, and within hours tried to transfer it to her main chain. Hooked. Now I had her address, but I didn't take anything yet. I waited, watched, let her stake it, let her think she was mining something meaningful. And when she posted a screenshot of her Thorncoin balance on a private Discord server under the handle L1F3H4X, I took a screenshot of that too, because now I had identity confirmation. I had usage logs, and I had just enough to make my next move fully legal. I submitted the paperwork, tied the wallet to LLC assets, attached public logs showing unauthorized movement, included Discord posts proving personal intent, and within 72 hours, a judge signed the freeze. The wallet was locked, $63,904 on digital ice. Jaden texted me one word, savage. But I wasn't done. Riley still didn't know what hit her, so I sent her an email, one line. You staked in the wrong garden. Enjoy the thorns. She replied in under an hour. Subject line, what the actual hell, Carter? Body, a solid wall of rage typing. Paragraphs of how I was obsessive vindictive and crossing the line. She even threw in a, you've always been jealous of my ambition, which made me snort coffee out my nose. That was rich coming from someone who stole 63 grand and vanished like an NFT project after launch. But somewhere in the middle of her digital temper tantrum, one line caught my eye. You can't prove I used LLC money. That was as close to a confession as I'd ever get in writing. I forwarded it to my lawyer because, now I had one of those. Her name was Diana Rourke. She was the kind of attorney who wore thick-rimmed glasses and had a bookshelf full of legal thrillers she actually wrote. She read the thread and nodded slowly, like she was listening to jazz no one else could hear. This, she said, is surgical. I said, is that good? It's beautiful. You're emotionally shattered, but legally bulletproof. Nice. We filed suit the following week. Not for theft conversion of assets. Civil, not criminal. Cleaner, more precise. The goal wasn't to jail her. It was to hit her where it hurt most: reputation and access. You want to ghost a guy and take his money? Fine, but don't do it on a ledger I helped build. And that's when the real game began. She went silent, which, if you've ever dealt with narcissists, is their way of reloading. Then came the retaliation. She started messaging people in my network, accused me of revenge porn, which was so off base, it was almost funny. Claimed I'd hacked her computer, said I was tracking her location. One guy, a mutual friend from DEF CON, called to say, "Bro, is any of this true?" I sent him a screenshot of the wallet freeze order. He whistled. She messed with the wrong coder. Yeah, no kidding. She tried filing a countersuit, claimed I manipulated her into signing LLC paperwork. Problem, I still had the video of us at the courthouse, smiling, celebrating, her literally saying, "We're official, baby. Now we get paid." I gave that to Diana. She laughed so hard she cried. "We're not just going to win," she said. or we were going to frame the check. The court date was set, 6 weeks out, which gave me plenty of time. Time to polish the code. Time to prep the story. Time to finish the last part of my plan. Because freezing the wallet wasn't the finale. That was just the intro. The real twist was what she'd staked her money into. My little thorn coin. It had a clause. An elegant, airtight clause in the smart contract that said any asset staked in the network for more than 14 days, if deemed part of an ongoing civil litigation, would be subject to automated redistribution upon legal validation. In plain English, once the judge ruled in my favor, her wallet would auto-liquidate and send it back, line by line, bite by bite. To me, I'd written the clause myself, buried it in the validator logic, like a seed in dirt. That's the thing about revenge. If it's too loud, they see it coming. But if you write it into the code, they'll never know what hit them. By week 4, she knew she was cornered. Her Discord handle went dark. Her Twitter went on private. And in a move that would have been funny if it weren't so desperate, she tried to rebrand as a wellness coach. Her website was a Wix template with pastel gradients and phrases like, "Align your financial chakras." Babe, you can't steal money and then sell inner peace. That's not a business model. That's astrology for con artists. Anyway, she sent one last message before the court date. "Carter, let's talk. Just us. No lawyers." Now old me would have maybe met her. Thought there was closure in conversation. New me. I screenshot the message. Sent it to Diana. Her reply, block her. Prepare. So I did. The morning of the hearing. I wore my best hoodie. Black, minimalist. Slightly ironic. Riley showed up in a beige suit that looked like it came from a rental rack. Her energy was all over the place. Like she'd been preparing statements, but forgot to prepare a soul. She avoided my gaze. Smart. The judge was sharp, mid-60s. Wore glasses like he could laser through your excuses. He opened the session with, "I've read the briefs. Let's not waste time." Thank God. Diana presented the LLC structure, the wallet logs, the contract clause, the Discord post, and just for fun. The original sticky note Riley left on my fridge. The judge raised an eyebrow at that one. "You left this behind." Riley blinked. "It wasn't..." "I didn't think that much is obvious," he said. After the ruling took 11 minutes. It felt like a lifetime and also a breath. The court finds in favor of the plaintiff. Funds associated with the disputed wallet are to be released under smart contract protocol per Exhibit E. That was the clause. That was the moment. And just like that, it began. Blockchain doesn't wait. Within seconds of the ruling, Thorn Coin's contract executed. Her staked assets converted back to ETH began siphoning out. Ping, ping, ping. Every few seconds, my wallet balance climbed. Not just recovered. Restored, with interest. And as the numbers ticked up, I looked over at her just once. Her face had gone blank. Shock does that. Especially when you realize the person you wronged didn't just get even. They coded the ending. Outside, Diana clapped me on the back. "You know," she said, "I've worked 37 cases this year. This one I'm telling at every Christmas party." I grinned. "You want a cut?" She shook her head. "I want an invite to the next hackathon." Back at home, I made tea. Just tea, not champagne. Because this wasn't a celebration. It was a reboot. And as the kettle hissed, I whispered to no one in particular. "You stole my saving." I rewrote the ledger. Then I took a sip and smiled. After the ruling, there was a calm, not peace exactly, more like the hush after a power outage. The moment you realize the machine's off, but it might come back on any second. Except this time, I had the plug. The funds sat safely in a cold wallet offline, air-gapped, buried in a metal capsule in a safe beneath my apartment floorboards. Paranoid? Sure. But after losing everything, once I wasn't leaving it on a browser extension and a prayer. Still, I didn't touch the money. Not yet. Because the truth was, it had never been about the money. No, I posted a single thread on Reddit that week. Not in some drama subreddit, but in a small niche crypto law community. What happens when a smart contract meets a court order? I laid out the details without naming names, called it a case study, included redacted screenshots, diagrams, even a copy of the contract clause, cleaned of identifiers. It blew up. Overnight, my inbox flooded. Legal firms wanted to license my smart contract logic. Startups wanted consultations. AVC offered a 6-figure retainer just to brainstorm ethics with you weekly. I told them all the same thing. I'm not building tools for revenge. I'm building shields for the next person. But before I said yes to any of them, I did something I hadn't done in a long time. I texted my mom. Things are okay now. I'm okay now. She responded 6 minutes later with a photo of a cat wearing glasses and a giant heart emoji. Classic. And then, proud of you. Even if I still don't understand crypto, fair. One night, I walked past the apartment door Riley used to call hers. I paused, not out of nostalgia, more like checking a phantom pain. Like, yep, that scar's still there. Still healed. Then I walked on. Because the thing about revenge, if you stay in it too long, it starts to rot, gets sticky, turns into obsession. But if you use it like pruning shears, sharp, clean, you make room for something else to grow. So I called Jaden again, said let's build it for real this time. Thorncoin. No, I said, that was the trap. I want the real garden. And he laughed this low, relieved chuckle. What are we calling it? I said, we'll figure it out. But in my head, I already knew Ledger Bloom. A platform where smart contracts aren't just about coin flips and pump and dumps. Where trust is coded and fairness is automated. A home for people like me. People who got burned and built something anyway. We started coding the next morning. Jaden flew in from Denver with his laptop, a backpack full of caffeine supplements, and a brain that ran on APIs and chaos. We didn't do a grand strategy meeting or a whiteboard session. Just sat at my kitchen table, feet up tabs, open hacking like we were 23 again and had something to prove. But this time we weren't building for clout. We were building armor for people like me, like you, like anyone who'd ever said, but I trusted them. Ledger Bloom took shape fast. Jaden handled the architecture. I handled the logic. We designed it so people could write enforceable smart contracts, tied directly to real-world documentation. Divorce agreements, business partnerships, rental terms, even co-investments, all with optional legal verification and a blockchain audit trail that actually meant something. No jargon, no shady links, no 30-page PDFs, just code that held people accountable. Meanwhile, Riley tried to sue me again, this time for emotional distress. Diana filed a counterclaim so hard, I'm pretty sure the courtroom echoed. She included the fridge sticky note again, plus screenshots from Riley's own LinkedIn, where she bragged about scaling and exiting crypto projects. The judge dismissed it in 4 minutes. Not even a full latte. That was the last I heard from her. She vanished from the internet completely after that. No posts, no profiles, just digital smoke. Good. Ledger Bloom launched 3 months later. Soft beta. Invite only. We didn't advertise, didn't need to. Word spread fast. We got our first real client, a woman who co-owned a business with her fiancé. She wanted to build a fair exit plan into their investment wallet just in case. She told me he's great, but I'm not naive. I smiled. Smart. Funny thing is, when you survive a betrayal, people expect you to stay bitter. Like if you're not angry 2M47, you're doing healing wrong. But healing isn't loud, it's slow. It's in the quiet moment you realize you don't need revenge anymore. You got what you needed. The truth. Your footing. Yourself back in one piece. And maybe a little shinier. One night, after a 12-hour coding stretch, Jaden leaned back and said, "You ever gonna use that money?" I looked at the cold wallet, then said maybe, then paused. Then, or maybe I already did. Because truth be told, that money funded the launch. Every dollar. Every line of code, every user protected, that's interest paid on the pain. And that felt better than any refund ever could. Ledger Bloom's first real stress test came 6 weeks after launch. A couple from Portland, Aaron and Mal, had pooled their savings into a side hustle selling vintage books online. Mal handled logistics. Aaron managed the money until she logged in one morning and found their shared crypto wallet empty, gone, just like that. She told me through tears on a Zoom call I thought I'd protected us. I even used a 2-step auth. She had. But Mal had the keys. And one long weekend in Reno, Turns out love's no match for blackjack and bad friends. Normally, that'd be the end of it. Split funds, no paper trail, no legal recourse. But Erin had used Ledger Bloom to set up their wallet with clause triggers. She'd configured a fail-safe. If any transfer over $5,000 occurred without joint digital approval, the system would flag and pause all outbound transactions pending verification. Guess what? That flag saved $42,000. We walked her through the freeze request, validated her proof, pushed the contract trigger. Within 2 days, the chain locked down. Mal emailed us, furious. Said we were killing his liquidity. We replied with 2 words, read clause. That was the moment I knew. This wasn't just a platform. It was proof. Proof that the right tech with the right values could stop the bleeding before it started. I watched Erin's face when she logged in and saw the funds restored. She didn't cheer, didn't cry. She just whispered, "Thank you," like the wind had finally shifted in her direction. After that, everything snowballed. We were invited to speak at Ethic Global, got featured in a Wired article titled, "Coded for Justice, When Revenge Becomes Infrastructure." Our Discord went from 300 to 5,000 users in a month. People weren't looking for hype anymore. They were looking for shelter. One night, as I was combing through new user stories, I got a package in the mail. No return address. Inside, a black USB drive and a note. Just 2 words. "We're not done." It wasn't signed, but I knew that handwriting. Ari, of course she couldn't leave it alone. But what she didn't know, I'd already moved on from revenge. Now I was building something she couldn't touch. A place where people don't just fight back. They fight forward. I didn't plug in the USB right away. I'm not stupid. I scanned it in an air-gapped system built for forensics, same machine I used to sandbox malware in my early 20s. If Riley thought she could Trojan horse her way back into my life, she forgot who taught her half those tricks. The drive wasn't infected. Just one file, MP-Alpha format. I played it. There she was. Riley sitting in some windowless room backlit by a cold light that made her look more ghost than person. "Carter," she began voice level but clipped. "I'm not asking for forgiveness. That's a game for people who feel sorry." Typical, but I am telling you this. You're not the only one building something. She leaned closer to the lens. There's a world coming, one where people like us make the rules, and when it arrives, all your contracts and clauses won't stop what's coming. She smiled, then crooked, bitter, tired. "Enjoy your victory. Just don't get too comfortable." The screen went black. I sat in silence for a while, not because I was afraid, but because part of me felt pity for her, still chasing shadows, still mistaking control for creation, and still thinking this was a game we were playing against each other. I didn't respond. Didn't need to. Her little theater piece was a reminder, but not the kind she intended. It reminded me why Ledger Bloom mattered. Because for every Riley, there were a dozen Erins. 100 stories of people trying to build something with someone, only to get burned. And all they had were screenshots and hope. I could give them more than that. I made a new feature that weekend, Vault Mode. Users could opt into an escrow backup. If someone triggered a suspicious transfer too fast, too big too soon, the system would copy the asset data into an air-gapped node before it finalized. Kind of like a dead man switch, but smarter. Ferry, we launched it quietly. No flashy post, just a banner that read, "Sometimes you need a second chance, just in case." People loved it. They called it reliability with a heartbeat. One user messaged me, "You've made it." So trust doesn't have to be blind anymore. That stuck with me, because I wasn't just fighting fraud. I was building something safer than revenge. I was building resilience. You know how some people unwind with wine or yoga. Me, I scroll contract logs. I find it oddly soothing, like reading digital footprints through fresh snow. Every transaction, a decision. Every clause, a quiet boundary someone dared not cross. Except this time someone did. It was midnight when the alert pinged. "Unusual contract activity, user." I froze. That was Riley's old alias. But the wallet was new. I checked the IP mask, bounced across 6 countries like usual. But the pattern was familiar. I'd seen this specific route once before when she tested a smart contract exploit back in our DEF CON days. My hands hovered over the keyboard. She wasn't just poking around. She was testing Ledger Bloom. I called Jaden. "Tell me you're not asleep." "I hate you," he mumbled. "What happened?" "She's back." He sighed so hard the mic cracked. "I'll make coffee." By 3 a.m. we had a mirror environment running. By 5 a.m. we confirmed it. Riley had deployed a dummy contract designed to mimic our escrow logic, except hers had a flaw, an intentional one. A backdoor written in obfuscated logic that could, if triggered properly, override vault mode and reroute funds mid-stake. It wasn't just a test. It was a threat. Jaden wanted to patch and block immediately, but I said no. "We log it, let her think it works?" He raised an eyebrow. "You want to bait her?" "Not bait," I said. "Educate." See, Riley didn't know that I'd rewritten our validator core with a new condition. If any contract mimicking our escrow protocol appeared, the system would autolog tag and route a decoy environment that fed back junk data. She wasn't testing us. We were testing her. Over the next week, she exploited 3 test wallets. None of them were real. Each time the system pinged her exact behavior. Time to breach payload type data skim attempt. And after the 3rd fake success, I embedded a message in the fake fund logs. "You're playing in a sandbox. We built the beach." No reply. But the ping stopped. And here's the wild part. She made us better. We pushed a major update that month. Tighter validation, randomized trigger logic, AI-based anomaly detection. It made the whole system smarter, quicker, more compassionate. Because resilience isn't about firewalls. It's about knowing people like Riley will always exist and still giving the rest of us a way to build safely anyway. One user wrote to us, "Your platform saved my divorce settlement from becoming a crime scene. Thank you." Another, "I was about to sign a deal I didn't understand until your guide walked me through every clause. You saved my startup and my sanity." Nope, that's worth every all-nighter. Because the best revenge is building something your enemies can't break. Even when they try. Summer melted into September, and with it came the storm. Not the kind with thunder or rain. The kind with headlines, emails, DMs that buzzed my phone even when I thought I'd turned off notifications. Ledger Bloom had officially gone viral. Not in a trending on TikTok way. In a deeper, more dangerous sense. Like when regulators start taking notes and venture capitalists pretend they've been following you for years. Jaden came into our tiny shared office one morning, waving his phone and half a cinnamon roll. "You're in Forbes, bro." I repeat Forbes. "You. In Mr. Forbes." I blinked at him. I didn't even give them an interview. Doesn't matter. They pulled from other interviews. Compiled quotes. Said you're the quiet engineer turning heartbreak into infrastructure. Kind of poetic, actually. I groaned. I hate all of that. You love all of that. He wasn't wrong. Because deep down, there was a part of me that enjoyed it. The irony, the narrative, the way people were now listening. Not despite the pain, but because of it. What started as me clawing back stolen money had turned into something much bigger. Something people believed in. They called it revenge tech. I called it justice with an interface. Somewhere between feature launches and bug patches, we got that email. From someone named June Miles. Subject line, proposal, strategic partnership. Now I get a dozen of those a week, usually from guys named Brad or Cryptomancerex trying to pitch the next ethical meme coin. But this one was different. June wasn't pitching. She was inviting general counsel at Cardington and Wolf, a firm so respected in fintech, even banks asked them to double-check their lawyers. Her email was short and precise. "Your validator structure caught our attention. We'd like to explore licensing the compliance framework for enterprise use. Would you be open to a meeting?" I stared at it for a full minute, then forwarded it to Jaden with, "Is this real? Or am I hallucinating from lack of sunlight?" He replied, "Real, and you are pale, but that's unrelated." Oh. We met her at a rooftop bar that overlooked the bay. It was the kind of place where the water costs $12 and the servers never smile. Very legal adjacent. June showed up wearing a minimalist slate blazer, black heels, and a wristwatch that probably had more computing power than my first MacBook. She didn't waste time. "I've reviewed your validator architecture. Your escrow conditions aren't just smart, they're humane. You're not optimizing for profit. You're optimizing for repair. That's rare. Jaden tried to look modest. I sipped my ginger soda and nodded. She leaned forward. What are you looking for in a partnership? And that stopped me. Because I didn't know. Revenge had lit the fuse. Grief had shaped the blueprint. But what came after justice? So I told her the truth. I want fairness. At scale. I want the next kid who signs a contract on impulse to have protection they didn't even know they needed. I want the startup founder who gets ghosted mid-fundraise to have recourse without hiring a lawyer. I want people to stop being punished for trusting the wrong person. She nodded slowly, then smiled. Let's make that happen. The deal we struck was simple. They'd license a non-customizable version of our validator core for large clients. Banks, compliance firms, even some government sectors. We'd retain IP and brand autonomy. No stake dilution, no nonsense. Jaden called it revenge royalties. I called it leverage, because this wasn't selling out. This was scaling up. That same week, I walked past the apartment Riley and I used to share. The blinds were different now. Someone had painted the door teal. Funny how quickly places change once you're gone. I didn't stop, didn't even pause. But as I crossed the street, I did whisper to myself, "Hey, Riley, still watching? Hope so. You should see what you built without meaning to." Because even if she never checked in, I knew others like her would. Opportunists, manipulators, people who'd rather weaponize trust than earn it. And Ledger Bloom was now their quiet enemy. Back at the office, I installed a new whiteboard. Across the top in bold, I wrote, "Trust is a system. Let's engineer it." Jaden laughed. "You always go full profit mode after a walk. Better than going full I miss my ex mode." He tossed me a protein bar and said, "Fair point." 2 days later, we got an email from a woman named Ava. She'd used our platform to formalize a contract with her ex-husband around their child's college fund. The vault mode kicked in after he tried to redirect the funds to a car purchase. "I didn't think software could do what a judge never did protect me in real time," she wrote. "Thank you for building it." I read that email 5 times, then framed it right next to the whiteboard. Because that was the win. Not the money, not the partnerships, not the headlines. The peace, the kind of peace that only comes when you know you didn't just survive something awful. You built something beautiful from it. I didn't think one podcast interview would change anything, but it did. It always does. Encrypted Heartbreak had invited me to talk about Ledger Bloom, not the tech part, but the emotional genesis, as they put it. Honestly, I was hesitant. Their usual episodes were about cheating, ghosting, toxic exes. Very rose quartz meets trauma dumping. But Jaden said, "Dude, it's your people. Coders with broken hearts and zero closure." So I agreed. The host, Maris, had one of those velvet voices that made you feel like confessing sins you didn't even commit. The interview was remote, but it felt intimate. We talked about Riley. We talked about how betrayal rewires your brain. We talked about how Ledger Bloom wasn't revenge. It was therapy disguised as a validator engine. Then she asked, "If Riley were listening right now, what would you say to her?" I froze. I almost defaulted to a joke, something about updating her moral firmware or debugging her empathy. But I didn't. Instead, I said, "Thanks for the lesson. I needed it. I just wish the tuition wasn't everything I had." Maris was quiet. Then she said, "That might be the most generous thing we've heard all season." The episode went live on a Friday. By Monday, Ledger Bloom's waitlist had doubled. By Wednesday, we were trending on Reddit under our crypto justice. And by Thursday, we got fan art. Not kidding. Someone had drawn me in a hoodie and cape, holding a glowing USB stick like it was Excalibur. The caption read, "Let the contract be the sword." Jaden printed it, framed it, hung it next to the espresso machine. I rolled my eyes, but secretly, I kinda loved it. That week, something else happened. A name popped up in a server log I hadn't seen in months. Not Riley's wallet, not her old email, but a domain pinged our public-facing sandbox, Mirrorbloom.net. I squinted at it, then clicked, and there it was. A full fork of our platform. Ledger Bloom, but corrupted. Same layout, same validator bones, same UI elements, but the code stripped. No escrow locks, no consent layers, no vaults. Just raw autonomy. It was like watching someone duplicate your body but forget to install a nervous system. They called it Maror Bloom, and in the footer, for those who don't need permission. Charming. Jaden nearly flipped a desk. This is theft. No, I said. It's interpretation. He looked at me like I'd lost it. But I knew what was happening. This wasn't about stealing our tech. It was about hijacking our message. Ledger Bloom said. You deserve safety. Mirror Zoar Bloom whispered. You don't need it.
What?
I dug deeper. The site was hosted offshore. DNS bounced through 4 continents. Wallets obscured. Classic obfuscation. But some of the code had a signature, a style, a naming pattern I recognized. Riley. She wasn't just watching. She was building. A counter-platform, a counter-narrative. At first, I was furious. Not because she forked the code, because she misunderstood it so completely. Ledger Bloom wasn't about control. It was about consent. Riley's version threw out the parts that made it safe. It was like copying a lock and tossing the key out of spite. And yeah, people flocked to it. Forums lit up with crypto-maximalists and anti-custodial diehards. Finally, a contract engine that doesn't babysit. Ledger Bloom is for simps. Mirror Bloom is for killers. Cool. Let's see how that works out. It took 2 weeks. A digital art collective used Mirror Bloom to mint and stake royalties on a massive NFT drop. No escrow, no triggers, no dispute resolution. Within days, the founding artist had drained the collective's wallet and ghosted. $1, 2 million gone, all perfectly legal. The message boards exploded. Users screamed. Lawyers shrugged. The contract had executed flawlessly, just in the worst possible direction. And then they came to us. Ledger Bloom team. Can you help us recover the funds? I typed 3 words. You used Mirror Bloom. Silence. Then, please, anything. We'll pay. I didn't say yes. But I didn't say no either, because this wasn't about winning. It was about demonstrating why we existed. We rebuilt the contract, offered them vault mode, rewrote clauses to track remaining funds. They got back maybe 30%. But they got clarity, and sometimes that's the best you can ask for. After that, Mirror Bloom faded. Not completely. It still lurked in some corners. But the illusion was broken. It was no longer the punk rock alternative. It was a cautionary tale. And Riley vanished again. No more commits. No more pings. Just silence. Funny how peace doesn't come when the threat disappears. It comes when you stop waiting for it to return. The quiet after Mirror Bloom collapsed felt complicated. It wasn't a victory parade. No confetti. No celebratory whiskey on a rooftop with Jaden yelling. We did it. It was quieter than that. Heavier too. Like the air after a fire still warm but choked with the smell of what didn't survive. Riley's fork had been more than a copy of code. It had been a dare. A challenge to the idea that safety and sovereignty could exist in the same line of code. And her version failed that test. Not just technically, but philosophically. What we had now, Ledger Bloom, in its full, hardened post-fire state was better. Stronger. Proven. But that didn't stop me from checking those server logs every morning. Not for her. Just for echoes. The pings never came back. She had disappeared like smoke. Again. Jaden, meanwhile, shifted gears fast. While I brooded over digital ghosts, he was drafting expansion roadmaps, holding webinars with law schools, and negotiating with an Estonian fintech that wanted to use Ledger Bloom in their divorce arbitration protocols. You know what this means, right? He said one afternoon, spinning in his ergonomic chair like a caffeinated child. We're entering our boring era. Boring's good, I mumbled. He raised an eyebrow. That's the most founder thing you've ever said. He wasn't wrong. Boring meant stable. Boring meant real. Boring meant we were no longer revenge tech. We were infrastructure. And infrastructure doesn't tantrum, it endures. That's when I got the call from my mother. We hadn't talked much since Riley. There's something about family that either stitches you tighter when you fall apart or quietly steps back, hoping you rebuild solo. Mine had chosen the latter, but now she was calling. Her voice was soft, unsure. Carter, honey, I saw a story about you. Which one? I said, trying to sound amused. The one about your app. Ledger Bloom. I smiled. It's not an app. It's a platform. Oh, well. I read the part where you said it started because someone stole from you. Milens. She didn't need to say Riley's name. We both knew. And I asked more gently than I expected. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry we weren't there more. Back then, I exhaled slowly. It's okay, Mom. Really? I needed to get broken where no one could help me. She hesitated, then said, well, I think your dad would be proud. And that broke me more than Riley ever could have. After that call, I did something I hadn't done in over a year. I opened the USB drive. Yeah, the one Riley had used to hide that hidden contract video file. The one I had stashed in my drawer like a cursed relic. I opened it not to rewatch the video, but to see the metadata. Just raw timestamps, hex and digital residue. It felt like digging up a fossil. A reminder of the precise moment I realized she was willing to rewrite reality to lie in code. I stared at the creation date. Of course it was Valentine's Day. Of course. The irony was so perfectly scripted I almost laughed. Then I closed the folder and dragged the entire thing into the trash. Not just metaphorically, digitally. Then I emptied the trash, shut the laptop, and leaned back. It was over. Really actually fully over. Not because she disappeared, but because she didn't define me anymore. The next morning, I pushed a commit to our GitHub repo titled Closure Patch. It didn't change much, just cleaned up some legacy code. But the commit message read, for the ghosts, we don't need to haunt us anymore. Jaden didn't ask questions. He just hearted it. Then came the award. I didn't even know we'd been nominated. Some fintech watchdog group had been tracking crypto platforms that were building defensive architecture in Web3. Ledger Bloom won their inaugural Design for Justice medal. They mailed it in a modest little envelope with a note. We believe you made the internet safer. That was it. No PR circus, no glitzy gala, just that line. I pinned the note to my monitor with a paperclip, then got back to work, because there was still more to do. We added a user storytelling feature. Let people log anonymously, or not the ways they used our platform. Some were dramatic, some hilarious. One user built a smart contract for a first date, where both people agreed to split dinner and deactivate the clause if either bailed. Another built one for her band, ensuring royalty splits were auto-distributed even if someone rage quit mid-tour. One woman wrote, my ex stole our shared crypto. I triggered the vault mode. He tried to fight it. I lost. The money's back where it belongs. My kids start school this fall. Thank you. That one. I framed, not the message, just the words, the money's back where it belongs, because that's what Ledger Bloom had become, not revenge. Restoration. And me, I slept better. Not perfect, not always, but better. I didn't realize how far we'd come until I was asked to speak at a law school. Not a startup pitch event, not a crypto panel full of hype bros and LinkedIn gurus. A real law school, Berkeley. Their legal systems and emerging tech seminar invited me to give a guest talk on programmable contracts and emotional architecture in digital agreements. Jaden told me not to go. They'll just try to dismantle what we built. Poke it for flaws. Exactly, I said. Let 'em try. He shrugged. Well, at least wear a shirt with buttons. I did. One button. Baby steps. The room was packed. Not just students, but a few professors too. I recognized one from a viral clip where he broke down blockchain ethics using monopoly money and a rubber chicken. I started my talk the way I always do, with silence. Let them settle. Then, raise your hand if you've ever signed a contract without reading it. Nearly every hand went up. I nodded. Ledger Bloom doesn't exist because people are dumb. It exists because trust is complex and time is short. I walked them through vault mode, trigger clauses, witness loops. Then I told them the story, not just the technical one. The personal one, about Riley, about the fake contract, about the day I realized legality and morality don't always shake hands. A few people gasped. One girl actually mouthed damn when I described how I reverse engineered the hidden file. But the most powerful moment came at the end. I said, you'll be lawyers soon. People will pay you to write things others can't understand. Ask yourself, are you writing protection or manipulation? The room was still. I didn't need applause. But when I walked out, one student followed me into the hallway. "Hey," she said nervously. "Can I ask something weird?" I shrugged. "Always. If Riley ever came back, like tried to talk to you, would you listen?" I thought about it. Maybe I said, "But only if she signed a consent clause first." She laughed. So did I. But part of me wasn't kidding. Oh, the next day I woke up to a news alert. A well-known influencer in the crypto scene, one who had mocked Ledger Bloom on Twitter a year ago, had just announced he was integrating our validator into his new crowdfunding platform. "Didn't even ask us for permission," Jaden said, sipping coffee. "Good," I replied. He tilted his head. "Good, yeah. That means it's not about us anymore. It's about the idea. We were no longer a brand. We were a verb. Just Ledger Bloom it." People actually said that it became a hashtag, a meme, even a sticker I found on the back of a scooter at a conference. Then came the weirdest twist of all. Riley's name popped up again. No, not in code, not in server logs. In a wedding announcement. A distant acquaintance texted me a link followed by, "Is this your Riley?" It was same eyes, same smile. Different man. He was a VC. Of course. They were getting married in Portugal. Minimalist elopement. Digital RSVP. Zero paper. I stared at the screen. Not angry, not sad. Just curious. Was she happy? Did she ever think about what happened? Did she still believe she was right? Jaden saw the look on my face and asked, "You okay?" I nodded. "Yeah. Just reading something I'm not in." And that was it. I didn't dig deeper. Didn't stalk. Didn't spiral. I just closed the tab. That part of my life wasn't a puzzle anymore. It was a fossil. But here's the thing about healing. You don't just wake up done. You just wake up different. Less noise, more quiet. And when the quiet's real, you can finally hear the future. Ours looked good. Ledger Bloom had started as code. But now it was conversation. People weren't just using it. They were shaping it. Writing plugins. Suggesting updates. One woman created a plugin that auto-converted clauses to plain language before signing. She called it decency mode. Another added a feature that let people attach video apologies to contract terms. So if a deal fell apart, both sides could walk away with context. Not legally binding, but emotionally brilliant. I reviewed that PR and approved it instantly. Jaden joked, "We're becoming a feelings company." "I'm okay with that," I said. "Next, we'll need a support line run by therapists." Or exes, I replied. They'd know the scripts. He chuckled. "Only if we pay them in closure." One night, I stayed late at the office. Everyone else was gone. The city buzzed beyond the window like soft white noise. I opened a blank document. Not for code. For a letter. Not to Riley. To the next me. The one out there right now just discovering betrayal in high def. I wrote, "You're going to want to burn it all. Don't. Build instead. Build so good they can't ignore it. Build so true they have to rewrite their story just to cope. And when you win, win quietly. Loud wins echo. Quiet ones last." I saved it as next founder. TXT. Then I turned off the lights and went home. The offer came on a Tuesday. Typical. Nothing world-changing ever shows up with a drum roll. Just a quiet ping. One notification out of 100. The subject line, acquisition interest. Let's talk. It was from a private equity firm I'd never heard of. But the body of the email was clear. We represent multiple fintech brands seeking to consolidate decentralized contract platforms under a single trust-based umbrella. Ledger Bloom stands out. Would you be open to a strategic acquisition conversation? Jaden's eyes nearly fell out of his head when he read it. Is this real? Seems like it. He reread it. Then again. Then once more for luck. We're the umbrella now, he muttered. No, I said. They want us under their umbrella. That mattered. Because for every nice-sounding word in that email, I saw the same thing. Control. Buy the future so you don't have to compete with it. Jaden sat down unusually quiet. So what do we do? I thought about it. Then smiled. We play the long game. Instead of replying, we sent them a calendar invite titled Exploration Chat. Neutral, boring, non-committal. Their response was fast. They showed up with suits, blazers, even a slideshow. Our vision aligns. The guy in the middle said, "We want to scale what you started." He used phrases like synergistic monetization and vertical integration of emotional assets. I nearly laughed out loud. When he finished, I asked just one question. "What's your favorite Ledger Bloom feature?" They blinked. One guy said vault thing. Another said the safe word. Jaden pinched the bridge of his nose. I thanked them for their time, politely, then walked them out. As soon as the door shut, Jaden said, "That was a hostage negotiation, right?" "Worse," I replied. "It was a branding pitch disguised as a merger." We didn't sell, but we learned something. They weren't the only ones watching. 2 more firms reached out that same week. One tried to butter us up with lunch in a helicopter. Another offered to buy the company and let us stay on as cultural advisors. I asked what that meant. They said you'd stay in charge of the vibe. Jaden asked if that came with dental. We passed on all of them. Because Ledger Bloom was never meant to be sold. It was built for those who couldn't afford to be betrayed again. You don't sell a lighthouse to a cruise company. Around this time, we launched a limited beta of a new feature, guardian clauses, designed for parents, caretakers, anyone managing money for someone else. It let users assign a secondary signature to critical actions like a digital second witness, built for trust, refined for heartbreak. A father used it to protect his daughter's inheritance after his divorce. A non-profit used it to prevent a rogue board member from moving funds without consensus. One guy wrote, "I never thought I'd need to protect myself from my best friend. But now I have, and I still love him. I just don't trust him." That one stuck with me, because that's what Ledger Bloom really was now. Not revenge, not even justice, insurance for trust. Then something beautiful happened. A rival, but not the malicious kind. A group of MIT students launched a competing platform, open source, fully transparent, and inspired by our model. They even thanked us in their launch blog. Jaden read it out loud with mock betrayal. They thanked us. Yep, they're gonna cannibalize us and thank us for the meal. They built something different, not a clone. An interpretation. We met them on a Zoom call. They were bright, fast-talking, a little chaotic, but genuine. I told them what Riley didn't understand. You don't beat Ledger Bloom by building faster. You beat it by building deeper. They nodded. One said, "We're not here to beat you. We're here to belong." And somehow that felt like the biggest win yet. We weren't alone anymore. That weekend I walked through the city alone. No headphones, no hoodie, just the sound of life happening. There were couples laughing on benches, a street musician singing off-key, 2 kids sharing fries and arguing about Marvel villains. And in that moment, I felt it. Not closure, not peace, but continuity. The story doesn't end when the villain disappears. It ends when you stop needing to prove you survived. And I had stopped. Not because I forgot Riley, but because I remembered myself. Back home, I wrote a new line of code into our platform footer. It didn't change anything functional. Just this, built on heartbreak, maintained with love. Then I logged off and let the silence hold me. I was making tea when the alert came through. Nothing big. Just a standard notification from our public feedback form. But the message, that stopped me. Subject, "I'm sorry." Message, "I think I finally understand." I didn't back then, but I do now. R. I stared at it for a long time. No last name, no return address, no wallet signature or cryptographic verification. Just that. 2 sentences and an initial. Could it be a troll? Sure. Could it be her? Maybe. But that wasn't what mattered anymore. What mattered was how I felt reading it. And the answer, calm, not righteous, not smug, just still. Because for the first time in years, I didn't need a response, didn't need a why, didn't need to win. I had already won just by becoming someone who didn't need to be right. Jaden found me still holding the mug, tea completely cold. What happened? I turned the screen toward him. He read the message. Twice, then looked at me. "What are you gonna do?" I shrugged. "Nothing." Really? You sure?" I nodded. Because there was nothing left to say. Not from me, not from her. The story had already closed itself. Ledger Bloom kept growing. We opened up our validator stack to third-party integrations. A healthcare app used it to let patients lock treatment budgets into contracts with doctors. A publishing platform used it to automate royalties with real-time visibility. People called it financial intimacy. I like that. Jaden hated it. So close to sounding like fintech meets therapy. I just smiled. Because maybe that's what the world needed. Not more frictionless transactions, but more honest ones. Then came the reunion. 10-year high school reunion. Jaden begged me to go. Imagine their faces when you show up and they realize you didn't die in a hoodie somewhere. I went, not to prove anything. Just to see if I could show up as who I was now. Spoiler, I could. People asked what I did. I told them. A few nodded vaguely. One guy blinked and said, "Wait a ledger bloom. That's you." I nodded. He said, "Dude, my ex tried to use that to sue me over couch. It worked." I laughed. "Then I'm sorry. And you're welcome, huh?" Eventually I went home. To the city that broke me. To the platform that rebuilt me. To the silence I no longer feared. I walked into the office, turned on the lights, stared at the whiteboard. Still there. Trust is a system. Let's engineer it. Below it, a sticky note Jaden had added recently. Also order more coffee. Jay. I sat down, opened a new contract template. It wasn't for money, or protection, or restoration. It was for a grant. A small fund Ledger Bloom would start. For developers who'd been betrayed, not just in love. In business, in family, in friendship. Because sometimes, the most powerful thing you can build is something after trust breaks. Not in spite of it, but through it. As I hit deploy, I realized something. Riley didn't take everything from me. She didn't end me. She began me. And Ledger Bloom, it was never revenge. It was a monument, not to pain, but to possibility. Some stories don't end with explosions. They end with a whisper. The sound of an inbox staying quiet. Of a message you don't feel the need to reply to. Of your breath steady finally after holding it for years. This wasn't about vengeance, not really. It was about what you do after the breaking. Not when you're still bleeding, but when you realize the scars don't hurt anymore. When you touch them gently, not with shame, but with curiosity. Look what I survived. I didn't burn it all down. I built the kind of place I needed when everything collapsed. A place where contracts had a conscience. Where protection didn't mean paranoia. Where heartbreak wrote the first line of code and healing wrote the rest. And now I let go. Not of the memory, but of the weight. Because some ghosts only stay if you keep feeding them. And I'm full of peace, of pride, of 1,000 quiet wins that don't need to be tweeted. So if you've ever lost everything and thought, "I'll never come back from this," I'm here to tell you, you don't come back. You come forward into something stronger, something softer, something smarter. Maybe even something you'll name after the person who made you doubt everything. Just to remind yourself what you rebuilt from. Thank you for listening to my story. And thank you for staying with me through every echo, every rebuild, every quiet click of a contract signed with clarity. Sleep well tonight. You're safe now.